Is everybody in that's supposed to be in? Is anybody trying to get in and is not in yet? See, the real advantage to doing this through Zoom is that I get to drink coffee and skip the mask. I'm sorry that you guys end up in the room there with the mask on. Okay, to start with, if you don't have a tablet, you can get one of these. You can borrow from Mr. Brown. You need to check it out from Mr. Brown. You guys know where his room is? It's right next to room 105, where typically foundation is happening. It's right there out on the hall. I think it says video editing on the door, near the door. Okay, let me share my screen, see what we can get into here. One big reason that I'm having everybody get one of these pens or use one of these pens is that I have done illustration before with a mouse. I don't do it very often. And the last time I did an intricate one was the first time I ever did that. I did a very intricate illustration with a mouse. And let me show you which one that was. Let's see. I think it's, yeah, corporate. It's this one. I know it's Eenie. That shows you how old this is. The image is, I did this in CorelDRAW. And it was the first time I did a digital illustration with any detail. And I did all kinds of gradients and blends and stuff like that. That, by the way, you can do in Adobe Illustrator. CorelDRAW is almost exactly the same thing as Adobe Illustrator. The problem that I had was after I did this, it took me near a week to do this, partly because I was learning and partly because it was involved. My wrist ached so bad that I could not use my hand. Thankfully, I'm left-handed when I draw, but I couldn't hold the mouse. I couldn't do anything with my right hand for a couple of days afterwards. And so my client I had another client came around and said he needed a bunch of NASCAR stuff, which ends up being, let me see what this is. That's the NASCAR junk. Yeah, right there. This stuff. He needed a buttload of this from me for textile design for lunch boxes for kids. Oh yeah. I sometimes come in with this thing. Don't laugh at my lunchbox because I designed this, and this was the second thing that I did with Adobe Illustrator, and it's a bunch of NASA stuff. Anyway, I told my client that as part of the price, he needed to pay me. No, like typically clients don't pay you ahead. I said, you need to either give me the money or buy me a wireless tablet. I got a Wacom tablet. I got a larger one. I got to tell you, I don't actually prefer the larger ones. The bigger it is, the more effort it is. It doesn't really translate to better drawing necessarily for most work that we're doing. Hey, I asked that question, how many of you have wireless tablet? Are any of you guys drawing directly on your screen? Nobody's jumping up, so I'm imagining, yeah? You draw directly, Amani, you draw directly on your screen?
I use my tablet.
Oh, you're drawing on your tablet. Is that correct? Now, your tablet doesn't have Adobe Photoshop, so I'm not sure you're going to be able to do this particular project that way. I know there's some really nice painting and drawing programs on tablets, you know. Jaleesa, are you doing the same thing?
I have a tablet that like it takes the screen and puts it on my tablet so I can just draw on it.
That sounds very cool.
I got fancy, but
yeah, that's pretty fancy. So it works together with a monitor then.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that is awesome. So you can look down at your tablet or you can look up at your screen, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Now when I'm working on a wireless tablet, of course I'm just looking up at the screen. You get it'll take some of you a little bit of orientation, but you get pretty comfortable with it pretty quickly. All right, look, I'm going to stop blabbing as much. No, I'm not. I can't stop blabbing. And I'm floating my cursor down here. I'm using the tablet as a mouse now. And I'm going to open up Adobe Photoshop. Look, through the semester, we started out with a completely traditional illustration that we did with ink wash, charcoal, graphite, acrylic paint, all that different stuff. Did you notice, though, that in that word jazz assignment, that essentially there were layers to it, right? You know, you had the ink splatter technique. That's one layer. Then you had your drawing, which gets transferred on there. That's another layer. Then you have the dark stuff that you're doing that's separate from the light stuff that you're doing. So all of that stuff kind of is a precursor to working digitally, doing digital painting in a combination. So this next assignment that we're getting ready to do continues that transition from traditional to digital. Some of you guys may have experience and be ahead of this. It's okay. It won't hurt you to do some more stuff like this. Now, I'm going to open up an illustration that I've got here. Sometimes I find it easier to, on my great big monitor here, beautiful big monitor, that it takes me a little bit of moving around with the pen. Oh, darn it, I didn't want you to see that. Turn all that off. Turn it off. All right. So, the great good news. This next assignment, you can do completely with your pencil as far as the line work. This part of the style that we're expecting, and the reason that you got hired by Joe Client is he saw your beautiful line and tone treatment. Basically, line and tone is, I've got, is Anthony watching this? Is Anthony in here? Or he went somewhere? Oh, Anthony's in here. Okay. You've got a decent beginning drawing, and I'm making it as easy as possible. Now, when I did this original work, I was working actually in t-shirts, and the end product had to be an ink drawing. So somewhere in my junk, I've got an ink drawing of this guy. This was a t-shirt for a blues guitarist named Guitar Slim. So I'm going to make a book cover for Guitar Slim's biography. I hope he's still around, but this was a long time ago when I did this. Anyway, you start with a decent drawing, okay? And then you're going to be adding a background here. Before I do that, I'm going to say, so I'm going to turn this back to a normal layer. There, my drawing, this is what my sketch looked like. And then I want to add, I'll turn this off for a second. I want to add a splatter texture. By the way, this is a key thing for the assignment. I found this splatter texture online. You can find a texture that you're going to use. It's important that your texture remain an integral part of your illustration when you're done. Okay? So I'm very interested that we don't eliminate the texture, the background texture anywhere entirely. Instead, what we do is we use it to unify the composition. Did you guys notice that some of your splatter textures, you kind of liked them more before you put the drawing on it? Did that happen to anybody in there? Not Khalees? I saw Amani kind of nod. No, you didn't like your splatter texture? Man, some people like that. They like just the randomness of it, okay? It can add a layer of interest to your work. Leonardo da Vinci said, I am recording this, aren't I? Yeah. Da Vinci said that he saw amazing compositions in the smears and scratches on an old wall inside a house. Has anybody ever had that happen to you? You look at some old beat up thing, like a rusty, maybe the side of a rusty car, and you see some kind of image in it or something, in other words, it looks like it makes sense. It's got a composition to it. I think there's something about life and the way things happen accidentally. I'm a big fan of accidental. That's interesting. I'm a big fan of on purpose too, aren't I? The word I like when I speak about being on purpose is intentionality. It's a quality of being intentional. When I was critiquing your sketches today, first thing I'm looking for is anything that looks unintentional. Unintentional will get the negative attention of a potential client pretty quick. All right, so back to my sketch. I start with this sketch, and I want to do like what we did where you guys superimposed your drawing. Remember, you transfer your drawing right onto the ink splatter texture. I think the cool thing about this is that you don't have to wet it. You don't have to merge it onto that background at any time. You can save it as a separate object to merge it. But I want to see. Oh, can't see my texture. So I hate to do this to everybody, but I'm going to ask this question. I've not used the responses. Give me applause if you have worked with selections and layers in Photoshop before. Look for the reactions. I think they're up here somewhere. Or down at the bottom of your screen. Yeah, applause, thumbs up. If you have done things like that before. Anthony, have you done that? Elizabeth? You guys that are in the class, turn your cameras on. Now, my computer's been giving me trouble. It's like I'll try to come in and it won't have the camera on, and I found I have to restart my computer. So if you're in the class, I want to see. So so Anthony, Michael, you have done some layers in Photoshop and stuff like that before?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Other people, I don't see that reaction. Jaleesa, you've done that, haven't you? Okay, good. Look, some of this has to do with the particular type of layer that you have. Like right now, my drawing of Guitar Slim has a normal. It's a normal style layer. The layer with line and tone work, the thing that I really like to work with is this idea of multiply. And what multiply does, oh, I didn't have the right layer selected. Undo, I undid that. Go up to select the layer that you want to add multiply to, and you can do different types of layers. I'm putting multiply. And what that does, boy, that really obliterated him, didn't it? That kind of looked like when you first transferred your drawing onto the ink splatter, didn't it? So, you know, right now I can barely see through it, but you can see that we can see right through the drawing down to the ink splatter texture. The flexibility that you get working with layers allows you to do things like add toning to an area. And in this case, I just did it kind of here. I'll turn it off the drawing. I just did a very vague airbrushing in here to lighten it, to help him show up. And then, oh, also, I have, here, I'm going to turn off my background. I have also layers of toning that I have done. And those are also, right now, they're a multiply layer so that the background continues to show through. So you know what how many, if you did ink wash where you actually were trying to shade with it, it's a little bit intimidating because once you put the ink wash down, you cannot remove it, right? You can't remove it. Well, I got to tell you, my whole orientation to doing illustration digitally in Photoshop is more closely related to stained glass design and painting than it is to this process. Because we would do multiple firings of our glass. And when we did that, we would, like, for instance, we would transfer the drawing onto the glass and do just a line painting. And then we would put that in the kiln and fire it. It would be permanent. So it couldn't be accidentally messed up. And then we would do shading on a separate firing. So essentially, I was working in stained glass, but I was working like you do in layers in Photoshop. So I'll add my tone. So look, here's a little bit of line and tone. This is just clean without the addition of any of that background noise. I want to add the background noise, like I said, to unify the composition. However, then I find myself in the position of needing to do things to it to enhance. So for instance, I can add or take away some of the shading in areas by adding a layer and painting on it. Or I can add shade tone areas. This is also a multiply layer that I'm adding here. I'm open to suggestion. What else does this illustration need? This also gives me a chance to sip coffee.
Is it going to be
Speak up.
color?
Oh yeah, this line and tone assignment that you have, it's black and white and one color. Remember that. It's not full color. There's a lot of work like that where they have a black and white illustration and they drop in one color. So we might do that, okay? Ooh, well, you know, color, I could do this, there, or this, and that's black and white and one color, correct? Okay, so I can keep it down as far as like what effort I need to do to put in color here. I'm gonna keep it to black and white for the moment. Not sure if I like that, but you know, I've been wondering about doing something more with the guitar. Oh, someone's coming in. Miss Britt. Okay. And yeah, I'm recording this, and the plan, my plan is to make it available on Blackboard. I'm getting my head around it. Blackboard, I don't know whether we're under attack or what, but the server went down for Blackboard and for E4U. That seems like some kind of attack to me. But I can send you this stuff via email. So I've created the list for the class, and I'll just send it again. So I've been kind of interested in doing some more with the guitar, and maybe, you know, getting down to some detail and doing some better shading and stuff. How would you, like, if I wanted to put an area of color inside the guitar, I'm not sure if I do, I'm just saying if I did, how would I go about doing that? Anybody know? Somebody pipe in if you know. Nobody knows? I don't believe that. If I'm going to add a color, what's the first thing I should do?
Find a complementary. Make a selection.
I could make a selection. That is the way I would draw the area that I'm going to fill in, otherwise known as masking. Now, anybody that's spray painted or airbrushed knows a little bit about masking. This is where you block off an area and paint, and basically paint freely around it. Okay, you mask off an area inside and you paint inside that area. That can be very, very cool, very advantageous. It's a great method. I've done traditional airbrush where like I'm on a surface and I'm doing that. That also has that element of a little bit, oh God, I hope I don't mess it up, right? How can I reduce the tension of that? How can I reduce the stress of airbrushing on this stuff? All right, I'll answer it because we're just going to take too much time. Add a layer. Add a layer. Whenever you're putting anything new into your Illustrator, notice how many layers I've already got here, even the ones I'm not using. Whenever I'm going to add something to the illustration, I always add a layer. So in the layers palette in Photoshop, I find the create new layer icon. And Jaleesa said, you know, draw a selection area. So I'm going to get out the lasso tool. If you look, can you guys see my cursor moving? I'm having a little trouble with it. I think the tracking's off. I'm going to move it over here into the center of the illustration. And I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hit Z and zoom in on the guitar area. Hold up, H. There. Now, I can draw with the lasso tool, right? So if I click and drag with the lasso tool, I can create a pretty nice selection area, right? You notice that it's a little bit wiggly. And oh crap, I added too much. Oh no, I missed. Oh, garbage. Something's going wrong here. Oh, he got a cigarette. The guy's smoking a cigarette while he's playing. Sounds like a blues player to me. He's got a guitar pick here. There's a lot of detail in here. Crap. Oh yeah, and there's that white strum plate. I'm gonna end up having to do something with that. I don't know. There's some stuff that's not going right here.
I think you need a pen.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to do that in a second. I'm demonstrating the two methods so we can see, you know, okay, does it work or does it not work, you know? So I'm on my fresh layer. What color should I make the guitar? Anybody?
Make it blue.
Okay. So I clicked on I clicked on the foreground color, and there's a lot of ways of getting color here. Is that a nice blue? Lighter? Okay. And I could dump a bucket of this in here. There, it's blue. And I'm gonna hide the selection area so you can see. You know, someone said get a pen, they were correct. I drew this with the lasso tool. The reason it doesn't work as well is that a guitar is a machined thing. It's been carefully smoothed. It's got similarities to an automobile. So the pen tool, does anybody know what the other name for the pen tool is? Has anybody in here heard of a Bezier curve?
No.
Bezier. It's a name. And it's a guy actually back in the 1960s who invented this for computer-aided design of automobiles. He was working for the French company that makes the Citroën. And he was designing a car. He actually designed this car with the aid of a computer back in the 1960s. And he invented this idea of the pen tool, which is a mathematically generated drawing tool. All right, I'm gonna undo that bucket of stuff. I'm gonna unhide my thing, and then I'm gonna oh, by the way, hide is Command H. Command H is you toggle back and forth, and then deselect is Command D, right? And then P is the pen. All right, so you gotta be strategic about this stuff. Strategically, I'm going to fill in the body of the guitar, and then I'm going to do the strum plate and the neck stuff as a separate layer, separate objects. All right, and let's see. So where does it really begin? All right, so with the pen tool, I just drop an anchor point, and I'm going to undo that. Because I find that in an organic illustration that almost every line has some little curve in it. So you drop anchor points to demark where you're going, but I constantly look for opportunities to make a curve. And you make the curve by clicking and dragging. Now I have my pen set to draw paths, not to draw smart objects or any such thing. And I'm just going to go right over here to this other side. Is blue really a good color? Maybe it is. What's that noise? Anybody know? And I see there's a chord that comes up in front of this, but I'm going to ignore it. For the moment, I'm going to draw around the person. I don't know, one part of me wants to draw or fill him in separately, but I don't have full color, so I'm not really worried about it. Boy, there's stuff that would be added to this. All right, you can't hardly see that. I'm going to get rid of the background inking, and I'm going to get rid of the toning, and there. Now you can kind of see my path. Once I've drawn this as drawing that tool, using the tool as a path, let me make sure how, yeah, pen tool. Up at the top here, over in the corner, you have options. Sometimes when you get on here, if you've been working, someone else has been working, they will have selected draw it as a shape. Don't want a shape, we want a path, because what we're going to do is look at the paths palette. Notice I have them buddied up together, paths, and I'm going to, it says work path. In order to make sure that I can get back to this path and use it again and edit it and all that kind of stuff, I give it a name. I'm just going to call it guitar. And then down at the bottom of this, there's a place where you can load this path. And once you have it selected, you can load it as a selection. And now I'll go back to layers, turn on some stuff. And if I dump a bucket now, that's, by the way, bucket for this is G. I don't know why it's G, because they have the, or is it K? It's K, I'm sorry, K. And that's a little, here, let me hide the selection. That's a little bit cleaner selection area. And, oh, I missed fingers here. Go figure. Oh yeah, how do you add to a selection area? Come on, one of you guys knows this. Or better question, how do you take away? Okay. Come on, if you add to any selection, notice the word, what's the way that you add to it? You hold down what keyboard stroke?
Isn't it option?
Option takes away. That's good. Option will minus part of a selection. Shift will take away. I mean, shift will add, excuse me. Option will take away, shift will add. All right, in this case, I'm gonna switch to the lasso tool, zoom in on it. Oh, what the heck, I'll use the pen tool. Pen, I'm gonna draw a new selection. So now notice I deselected guitar and I'm drawing a new path. And this path, I'm using this path to edit. I could edit the guitar path. I'm just gonna use this path to edit, because I wanna show you something that you can do with it. All right, now if I hold down Option while I push that load selection area. Oh wait, hold on. I'll go to paths. I hit a selection area. Am I in so close that it's doing? Yes, it is. Okay. And then I go to the work path. That work path is this little area where the fingers are. If I hold down Option and click on this, it gives me options. In other words, I can make a new selection, I can add to the selection, or I can subtract from the selection. And what I'm going to do is create a new layer, and I'm going to dump this other layer. And I'm going to dump my bucket of color in here. There. So to review this idea of selections, I'll just use the lasso tool to show you. If I create a shape, freehand drawing with the lasso tool, I get a selection area. And I can dump things into it, or I can shade or paint on that. If I want to add to it, I hold down Shift. I'm holding down Shift right now, and the cursor changes so that it's got a plus sign. I can add to the selection area as much as I want. Command Z, Command Option Z will step back. Or if I want to take away, I hold down Option, and I can take a bite out of it, out of that selection area. So that's how selecting works. You can use the lasso tool for freehand type drawing. I use the pen tool for any kind of regular or machined kind of selecting. All right, and I'm going to go back in close. I'm going to do this strum plate and deselect. I'm going to use the pen again. Huh. Does anybody know what that is? It's picking up like my sound from a microphone? Maybe? Well, you know, if I'm not asking you a question, mute your microphones and then it won't pick it up. That's really weird. So, you know, what's happening is you're in the room there, the speakers are on and the microphone is picking up all the sound and it begins to bounce it back and forth. I am going to go down here on the neck. Okay, and I'm going to make a new layer. Do it on top, not on the same layer, and dump a bucket of white in there. So get the paths, load this new one into, I'll call it strum plate. And load that as a selection, and then dump a bucket of white in here. My keyboard stopped working, so that's interesting. Yeah. I wonder what this looks like when I put the background stuff in. Oh, wow. Notice that stuff really shows up. What's the potential problem with my drawing so far? What's the correction that needs to be made? There are a couple of them. Is there anything wrong?
It's covering up the splatter pattern.
Oh yeah. So for that, I could turn this into a multiply layer. That worked out pretty well. You know, this strum plate, I want that to show up. So instead of multiply, because white multiply, I think I don't even know if it does anything. Yo, it just disappears. White will completely disappear. The way multiply works, it only amplifies things that are darker than what's below it, okay? It augments them, but anything that's lighter than what's below it will completely disappear. So in this case, I probably would need to do something like turn down the opacity so that it's there, but it lets the background kind of show through. Now, are there any places in your illustration where the background won't show through at all? Yeah, for emphasis, but not just randomly. But what else is wrong with the strum plate, for instance? It has issues. It's like it's got, look, here, turn this off. It's got this white area here that doesn't belong there. I can fix that pretty easily by using the selection of the layer below. I'll use the wand, W for the wand, and then go up to the strum plate layer and hit delete. And then I deselect it again. So I'm back to that. Got this stuff. That looks lighter. Why does that look lighter? That's really weird. Hmm. Is it just, it was lighter, it just happens to show up. Okay. So we're still feeding back in there, huh? Okay, now, I want to make the neck, because look, see, the body of the blue guitar goes like right behind where the neck would be on the guitar. I want to make the neck. What do I do next? This is really important, because I find people spend a lot of labor, and then they need to change something, and they found that they did it all on one layer. Don't do multiple objects or painting on one layer. Make sure that everything gets a new layer. So the next thing I do is create one more new layer. And oh yeah, the other thing I do sometimes is I will label the layers, excuse me, so that it's easy to get back to. Sometimes it's easy to see in the little icon there. You can see the thumbnail of it. Sometimes it's not easy to see. I'm going to do one more thing to this guitar. Gee, so I got the blue. I'm limited to one color, aren't I? So it looks like my background's going to have to be this blue. I'm going to have to change. Oh, I forgot to tell you. So the background, anybody use that idea? I took this black and white background and I changed its color. So what I did, I copied the background layer, and then I just got into adjustments, image, adjustments, and color balance. And you know, after a while you get used to it, you can kind of play with it a little bit. So like right now I'm moving this more towards the color of the guitar that we made, so that they'll appear at least to be the same color, give or take. And maybe lighter, you know, I don't know. So if blue is my color, which seems appropriate, I guess I am, since I limited the color, I'm not going to do anything with coloring the guitar. I'm going to probably leave that, but I am going to do something to clean up the neck area. So I'm going to hit P again. And just draw a new path. And I see that it's got a problem. I hit A. Look, there's an edit that I want to do here because it's sticking out. I don't want it to stick out. I drew one of my anchor points wrong. So I hit A. You can actually adjust everything in the path. And then load it as a selection. Go to the right layer and hit delete. And I got my neck back. Okay, so there's that. Look, we could do a lot of different things to this. I actually don't have to use the blue background. I could use the black and white background. I have to decide that myself. I might use it, if this was a book cover, I might use that color in the typography as well. I'm not sure which one I like better. You know, there are a lot of things that you might do for refinement in here. It could include, you know, adding darker layers to things to make it more realized. I noticed that now that I've got color in here, that my background layers, my stuff ends up looking pencil, like graphite, more than it should. To make sure that I don't ruin the illustration, I'm going to copy my layer, outline layer, by dragging it down onto the new layer icon. Oh, that darkened it up a bunch. But I'm going to turn off that original layer there. I'm going to do the same thing with the washes. And I'm going to do stuff to the copy. All right, so under image and adjustment, under levels, when you look at, one of the favorite ways I have of adjusting the black and white contrast is to get into levels, because it gives you the most amount of control. And so you have a black slider. Basically, if I slide this slider up, I get more black. And the white slider, if I slide this one down toward the middle, I get more white. And so what it does is, all those little smears that are happening on the background, it'll clean those up. I may want to reduce the amount of gray. I may want to increase it. I don't know. I'll go back and forth about that. And when I like it, I'll say, okay. I just noticed that there's a smear up here. So there are ways of airbrushing in here. You can airbrush with a paintbrush, or you can airbrush with an eraser. I like to airbrush with an eraser to make corrections. It's a little big, but I did a little bit of cleanup there. I'm gonna make it smaller, maybe even smaller, to take out that smear on the top. I could mess around with this a lot more. As far as airbrushing, let's say, for instance, right now I'm attracted to the idea of darkening this area around the guy's shoulder. And so I'm going to create another layer above this layer 0 copy. I'm going to create another layer. Gee, I wonder if I should do it in blue or in black, and then bluify it. For the now, I'm just going to leave it in blue. Create a new layer, make it a multiply layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the area outside his shoulder. So for this, I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit, and then hit the lasso tool and just draw into the line. Oh, you guys, there's an artifact that I'm passing here. Do you notice these two little cross shapes that are up nearby there? Do you notice these two little cross shapes? Those are registration marks for the shading on his shirt. So when I did the shading, I was looking through a light table, and I drew two little registration marks so it would be easy to line them up. They're not quite lined up. I'm not worried about it right now. I'm going to turn on this blue, and I'm going to sample it. Look, with I hit I and get a blue, a darker blue to shade with. And I'm going to back away from it, hit the B for the airbrush. When I hit the B for the airbrush, the cursor, you see it's like a little circle. I'm going to make it bigger. And how big is big enough? Here's the thing with airbrushing. Bad airbrushing will show spots like this. Look. Oh, that's not the airbrush I want anyway. Ooh, I need a normal layer. Okay. I need to change the quality of my airbrush, make it a soft one. I got to tell you, I use 100% flow, 100% opacity. That's me. It's probably because I worked with an airbrush for years. If you're a little bit timid with it, you can back off the opacity, you can back off the flow, and it will be a little bit easier to control. Just depends on you, depends on what what you're comfortable with. But the principle with airbrushing is that when you have a mask and you want to shade, that you put your airbrush halfway across that line and run right along it. So let me see if I can do that. There's something funky about this color. And there's something funky about my keyboard. It's like crashing. I'm on a normal layer. I have a color. What am I dealing with here? is painting a gray, and I'm not looking for a gray. Paint with that. What paints that? I'm looking at my blue, trying to figure out what's wrong with it. I'm going to brighten it up. Well, that's better. It's not what I want, but it's better. And then what happens when I turn it into a multiply? That's better. So I can bring out his shoulder. I'm going to hide the selection here. I can bring out his shoulder by darkening an area around it. And I don't know how far out I want to go. You know, it depends. If I do want to go out wide, what I need to do is make a much larger airbrush and then just hit it like that. And the much larger airbrush is easier to make a gradation. I'm trying to think if this is enough for you to understand what to do with your illustrations or not. You know, do you guys understand how you will do a separate line drawing? You'll scan that. You will either find a splatter texture or make one, and you will scan that as well. Bring these things in together. You can do shading with ink wash outside. Here, let me get rid of that. You can bring in painted shading that you have done using whatever method you're comfortable with as well. But I want to encourage you to do some of the shading and some of the refinements here in the program. And then, you know, you combine these by using multiply layers, a combination of multiply layers and objects that are painted on separate layers, shading that's done on separate layers. Any questions about this? Did I lose absolutely everybody? No, okay. I think this gives you kind of a basic idea of how this would work. All right. If there are no questions, you guys have sketches to refine. Some of you have contracts to get in front of me, and some of you have sketches for me to see for the first time. And we can do that in person, okay? All right, I'm gonna end the meeting.